We haven't done a book review in 5 years. We have not done a book review in 5 years. For many reasons. We are not going to get into those reasons. But because of other reasons, primarily the feedback we've been receiving, the number of followers, the channel has been consistently growing without us posting any content. So we decided, let's just fit the channel with content so the people who have respected us and subscribed to this channel may find their subscription worthwhile. Now, to resurrect our channel, we're doing a book today by Matthew Blackman and Dall. It's titled Rogues Gallery, an irreverent history of corruption in South Africa, from the VOC to the ANC. I don't know if you guys are gonna still get this book in the shelves. I'm sure it's gonna be scarce. This book is very, hey, what a book. Yo, what a book. Anyway, let's get into it. The book tells us about corruption, as the subtitle tells us, an irreverent history of corruption in South Africa from the VOC to the ANC. Now, the book challenges the narratives of the race as a main common denominator to South African corruption, that actually it is a particular race of individuals that are more corrupt than the others. This book defies that, and it uses history as it's a proper study. It uses history to actually debunk that particular racial connotation myth, or in terms of corruption and so forth. Now, the book tells us of a number of characters. Most interestingly, it starts from the very beginning, from the days of the VOC and the Cape being a small colony for the VOC, not before the English came and took over. But it also talks about the time when the English took over. It talks about the time of the Boer republics. It tells us of apartheid South Africa. It talks about even post 1994 South Africa. It uses all the South Africas that we know to actually prove that corruption is an issue more deeper than just race. Now, the book tells us of the first character it mentions is a man by the name of Willem Adriaan van der Stel, who was the son to a man called Simon van der Stel, who was the governor of the Cape, and who founded Stellenbosch and named it after himself. So Willem Adriaan van der Stel was the son to Simon van der Stel. Now, and he eventually took over his father's post as governor, and this is the first man to use a state position that was and that was supposed to benefit the VOC, being it was the government during those days. That was the Cape was the outpost for the VOC. This man channeled the funds away from the VOC to himself, the lands, and did so many things. He gave himself the best farm, the biggest farm, the most productive farm, and he made sure he passes laws that benefit himself and few of his cronies, those who agreed with him. If you did not agree with him, that man would just close tabs on you. He'd only give lucrative contracts to the other burghers who were around and who were agreeing to his propaganda or his modus operandi. Now, that's the first man they talk about, and he's given the title as very corrupt. Now, he talks about Sir George Yonge. They call him the love teetotaler. He was a man who liked the finer things of life, was quite lazy, was quite inept at the job of being governor. This is when the English had taken over the Cape, and this man was just useless. They even withdrew him because of how useless he was. But then one thing he was really capable of doing was rechanneling the funds. He made sure that the crown doesn't get as much as it was supposed to get, and he channeled all of those funds to himself. He was eventually withdrawn back to England, but without punishment. We'll talk about that. Most of these people we are going to mention here have actually done the things they've done without any punishment. It's a historic thing in South Africa. Now, the book also tells us about a man called, immediately after Sir George Yonge, there's a Sir Charles, Lord Charles Somerset. If you know Somerset, Somerset is Somerset, and all of those Somerset, they are named after him. Lord Somerset also liked the finer things in life and also liked money. Also made sure when he was dealing with money, he will keep the bigger percentage to himself, and would make sure the crown gets little. The crown got tired of him. He eventually got withdrawn as well. So these are during these are colonial days. These are colonial days. Already there were elements of corruption within those administrations, and there is no black man which is mentioned already. The book goes on, and it tells us about a number of characters. It also tells us about Rhodes, Cecil John Rhodes. It tells us Cecil John Rhodes was also a governor of the Cape Colony. It tells us how he made sure that every law that he passed was there to benefit his company and himself, and this diamond empire and the monopoly that he has created, and how he managed to let even the English and all of those and the colonial administration to just turn a blind eye, man, because he would promise he would give them shares of through his diamonds. And because he started managing the diamond industry, like De Beers, and they go a long way. So already he was governor of the Cape, and he was chairperson of De Beers. So whatever decision he would take on his capacity as governor of the Cape was directly benefiting to his company. For example, the Glen Grey Act of 1884, we all know it, where it dispossessed Africans of their land and stripped them of their status as landowners and forced them to go to work in his mines. Cecil John Rhodes. It doesn't only stop there. This book doesn't stop there. It proceeds, and it tells us for example, it tells us of Paul Kruger, Paul Kruger. It tells us that Paul Kruger was just like Zuma. He had his own Guptas, a man called Semi Marx and another one called Nelma Pierce. These chaps actually had monopolies of almost every industry in Kruger's Boer Transvaal before the Anglo-Boer War. They had a monopoly in the production of alcohol, a monopoly in machinery, and a monopoly in almost everything you could imagine that was available during Paul Kruger's days. It was only available for Semi Marx and the Malpias. They bankrolled Paul Kruger. They looked after his lavish lifestyle. Paul Kruger belonged to these two. So this book tells us that what we are seeing today is just history continuously repeating itself. The book doesn't stop there. The book proceeds and tells us about apartheid South Africa. How apartheid South Africa managed also to be corrupt, and the people who were perpetuating that corruption did not really go and meet there wasn't any justice served against them. Now, the book tells us of many scandals when South Africa was banned from procuring and selling arms, but somehow the apartheid South African government would always find a way of smuggling arms out of the country through sales and smuggling them in through sales, through offshore accounts, through third parties, through all of these other things. The book talks about that and how those particular deals would benefit a couple. The book talks about how apartheid ministers and how apartheid civil servants use the apartheid state and the fund the funds and the money that the state had to benefit themselves, and how they created generational wealth for themselves. And the book mentions a couple of individuals who made the biggest deals from those particular proceeds. It doesn't stop there. It tells us about homelands. It makes examples of Kaiser Matanzima. It tells us of Mangope, of Lucas Mangope, and how he had Israel fund us, how the stadium you see in Mabato, that stadium, yes, that one, it's made, it was built by Israelites, and how much money was spent and how much it benefited from those particular proceeds. And it tells, hey, this book will shock you. The book will shock you because it will tell you of deals which have been made long before you were born. Long before you were born. And then the book finally comes to the point of a post-1994 South Africa. And it uses Jacob Zuma and the Guptas. That's where the book took an absolute U-turn, where I was like shocked. Like, wow, okay. By that time, by the way, Jacob Zuma was still a member of the ANC when this book was released. So when it gets to him, it takes a U-turn. The book's like, everything we've seen Zuma and the Guptas do, it's nothing compared to what these people have done. Yes, Zuma has done this, but it must not be seen as if the ANC or a black government or President Zuma is an individual is the most corrupt, because whatever, not that whatever he did was correct, but then he must not be made to be seen as the face of corruption, when we've had white people, Afrikaners and English, who are more corrupt than him. And at the end of the day, nothing really happened to them. All of these people who have mentioned here, all of them, no one slept a single night in a prison cell. It is only President Jacob Zuma, because he's black. The others never slept in a cell, not even a single day. No one was charged with corruption from all of these people who have mentioned. So in South Africa, from the days of the VOC up until today, the days of the GNU, there will always be levels of corruption. And the corruption probably today angers more people, and those who yield more power, who are found in the upper echelon sectors of society, who might be offended that today the state machinery is benefiting someone with a darker pigmentation. Before there was no problem. You would read articles of, there was no problem. They would not make any noise about the corruption, how it stole from the poor, how it stole service delivery, and how it denies a basic South African basic services. So it is a very interesting book. I don't think you'd find this book in the shelves anymore. I haven't seen this book when I get into bookshops. The powers that might buy them all and just hide them somewhere. It's a very, very, very interesting book. Especially for us who always have a perspective and always have an opinion about corruption. It is proper that you speak about corruption from the perspective that you understand, and that means historically have a proper background of corruption and what corruption has done to South Africa and the outcomes of corruption. It is said that it is only a black person, President Jacob Zuma and the Guptas, who are supposed to be today running around and facing the wrath of corruption. Not that they are not supposed to, but everyone was supposed to come and account for their role of corruption, even apartheid ministers, apartheid senior civil servants, and everyone who benefited from apartheid and who continues to benefit from the way the economy is set up. So this is a fantastic book, and I think it makes a fantastic read, and it justifies being the book that I use to revive my channel. How would I rate the book from 0 to 10? Yes, I still do ratings. I would absolutely rate it a 9. I wouldn't rate it a 10. It's a fantastic book. It does deserve a 10. But because we leave room for disappointment, someone might come and counter, and that space, that one, it's for them. So it's a 9 out of 10. It's a fantastic book. It's a book that I believe should be in every South African bookshelf. It is quite an empowering book. It is enlightening. It is one good teacher. And the fact that it was written by a white boys. And this white man wrote thoroughly, and I'm happy by that fact that they could even pinpoint some and challenge some of these racial connotations that have been attached to corruptions, and they've managed to debunk every racial myth that has been attached to corruption, and they've given a proper account of corruption in South Africa from the days of the VOC to the days of the ANC. I loved it.